Hello everyone, my name is Abby and I am the young adult assistant at the Twin Lakes Library System and I use she, her pronouns. So today I am going to be talking to you all about television shows that feature sort of fairy tales and mythology and myths within them. So the first show that I'm going to be talking to you about is Shira and the Princesses of Power. And Common Sense Media recommends this show for ages 8 and up. So the show follows Adora, who grew up being and training to become a soldier, a part of the Horde. And she and her best friend Katra have been training their whole lives to battle princesses who are the opposing side. And they are finally given the opportunity, but Adora ends up encountering Glimmer and Bo, who are on the princess's side, and lead her to a magical sword that reveals Adora to be the lost Shira. And Shira is a princess who is destined to save Etheria, which is one of the kingdoms within the princess area, from the Horde and kind of its evil nature. So Adora has to leave behind everything that she's ever known and sort of has to learn about the world and kind of relearn and reestablish and question things that she had previously known to complete her destiny. So, why I love this show. There is great LGBTQIA plus rep throughout many of the characters within the show, which is really awesome to see. It's overall a very diverse and inclusive show. There's a lot of physical diversity and there's a lot of neurodiversity within the characters, which is just incredible. It's awesome to see different people represented, and it's great because audiences can see characters that are like them. The next reason that I really like this show is that there are a lot of really great character dynamics. So I love all of the friendships within this show. One of the main points of this show, or one of the main themes of this show, is friendship and unity and being inclusive. And the show does a really good job of that. And all the friendships are wonderful and feel very natural. And then the last reason that I really like this show is all of the characters are great, but I think Adora is just a really lovable and relatable main character hero. She is very human, and a lot of her reactions and responses to her new situation. She's not immediately good at being Shira. She sort of has to train and learn and grow to become a good Shira. And she struggles with confidence and, has to build that up as she goes on and realize that she is very capable, which is just, it's great to see that sort of development on screen. So the next show I'm going to be talking to you about is Teen Wolf, and Common Sense Media recommends this for ages 13 and up, but personally I would recommend it for ages 14 and up just because some of the content I feel like is a little more mature, but that is again up to parental discretion. So, this show follows Scott McCall, who is an incredibly average, normal high school student. He's 16 years old. I think really the most thing he wants out of life is to be a little bit more popular at school. But that kind of all changes because one night he is walking home in the woods alone and he is attacked and as a result ends up becoming a werewolf. And so he sort of has to navigate that, and he does that with the help of his best friend Styles and with the help of a fellow werewolf in town named Derek. And they sort of help him cope with this complete shift in his life. So Scott sort of likes some of the things that come from this shift. He, from his abilities, is able to join the lacrosse team, which he really likes because he has always wanted to join, and it's kind of like the most popular sports thing you can do at the school. And it also sort of helps him get the attention of the new girl, Allison, through his athletic abilities that have developed through his werewolf abilities. But Scott sort of quickly realizes that a lot of people do not like werewolves or other supernatural beings, and so he sort of has to deal with that and has to, learn how to face his enemies and people who want to hurt not only him, but the people he cares about. So, why I love this show. I think that the characters are all incredible. I think what's great is this show is a really large ensemble cast, so you have a lot of options to sort of pick your favorite character or to develop, develop a favorite throughout. Personally, my favorites are Scott, Lydia, and Styles, but again, there's a wide variety of people that you can pick from. And kind of going along with the characters, there's a lot of really good character development within this show. So, they start off as average 16-year-olds, but they really grow, which is good because this show was on for I think 6 years. I think it was from 2011 to 2017 that the show was on. So it's nice to see that the characters developed throughout time rather than sort of staying the same. It shows a lot of maturity as they grow and go on. The next reason I really like this show is it's very suspenseful and there's a lot of plot twists. It's a very mysterious show. There's supernatural elements included in this, which is really cool to see. And a lot of shocking and really interesting stuff happens, whether that be the plot or something with the setting or the characters throughout. So that's really cool. The show also stays really interesting throughout. It never gets boring. There's sort of like this overarching theme of like Scott and the other characters, though it predominantly focuses on Scott, developing and becoming stronger and more aware of themselves and having them learn how to control their abilities. But each season sort of focuses on something new, which grows the mythology and the world that the show is set in, and it's really cool and interesting, and nothing feels repetitive. It all feels very fresh each season, which is just awesome to see. And then I think the setting is really cool. So they're set in a fictional town called Beacon Hills, and it's a really well-developed fantasy scape. So like lots of supernatural creatures are wandering around there, but it all just kind of cohesively works together. And then I think that really it's just a very entertaining show. It's just a lot of fun to like watch. It's very like bingeable to watch. You don't get bored. The characters are all interesting. Like it has all of the elements for a really fun and entertaining show, and it works really well. It's funny, the writing's really strong. The scary stuff is there, the supernatural stuff is there. It's just a lot of different elements that work together super strong. So before I talk about my last book, I am going to show you the code for this one. So for this summer reading club, it's going to be Hero. And that's the code. And you will just go ahead and put that in before, or just to let us know that you watched this. So the last show I'm going to talk about, it's a little cheating because it's actually a lot of the elements of the show are based on real cultural practices and real religious practices and religions. So that's all very real, but the show itself has a really interesting mythology, so I thought I would talk about it. Also, I just think it's a fabulous show and that everyone should watch it, as I am currently watching it myself and have really enjoyed it thus far. So that show is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and this is recommended by Common Sense Media for ages 8 and up. So this show, it follows people who possess a connection with one of the 4 elements. So you have water benders, earth benders, air benders, fire benders, and then, people who are just connected with water, earth, air, and fire. They're like tribes exist within each element, which is cool. But the Fire Nation has actually started a war that's lasted over 100 years, and they've been sort of trying to take and rule over these other tribes of different elements, which not everyone is okay with. But the problem is the Avatar, who is an individual who masters all of the elements, who could definitely defeat the Fire Nation, has been missing for over 100 years as well. But the two of the main characters of the show, Katara and Sokka, stumble upon a 12-year-old boy named Aang, and they discover that Aang is actually the Avatar. So the problem with Aang is that while he is really good at airbending, because he is an airbender and he's, connected with the air element, he's not so great at water and earth and firebending yet. He still has to develop those skills. So they all journey together to sort of help Aang train and prepare himself to defeat the Fire Lord and the Fire Nation and sort of bring back peace and harmony once again. So, why I love the show. The characters. The characters are so great. Anyone who has watched this show will probably tell you that the characters are incredible. They're so well developed. Even the villains themselves are really intricate and three-dimensional. Like, you can appreciate them as being good villains. You don't necessarily have to like them, but you can appreciate how well written they are. And there's so much development within this show. There's one particular character that I'm thinking of who's my favorite character, but they all grow so much and develop so much within the show. It's just incredible to see. The show is very diverse. It pulls a lot of influences from different Asian cultures as well as different indigenous people, which is just awesome to see that sort of representation on media, which it's just very cool to see. So, another thing that I like about the show is that it's really funny. Sokka is your main comedic relief, but all of the characters have moments of funny interactions, and that's, attributed to the great writing of the show, but it's just awesome to see, and it makes the show can get very serious, but it's nice that it has these sort of funny elements. It's a fully and well-developed world. Each of the different tribes, so the water tribes, the earth tribes, the air tribes that you sort of see, the Fire Nation, just all really well developed. They all have such, compelling and well thought out backstories. The importance of them is known throughout the world and it's explained to the audience, so it's just really great to see that. I love also the animation of this show. So this show is sort of inspired by Japanese anime style, but it's just so good. Anime is also very good, but this show also just it takes that inspiration, but there's a little bit of a twist on it. It just works super well. The characters are well illustrated, but the worlds are very beautifully done. The different locations are very well illustrated. The bending is so cool to see on screen. I just love it. And then finally, I just think that this show is an amazing watch for audiences of all ages. So you could be 8, which is what is recommended, or you could be 50, and you'd probably get something out of the show. It has a lot of really good themes and topics, discussed throughout. I think some of the main ones that I can really think of off the top of my head are hope and redemption. Like I said, there's development within the characters, and redemption is something that is deeply discussed and shown throughout the different characters and the plot lines within this show. So that's just incredible. It's a children's show technically, but I think it's so much deeper than that. And I love seeing that, and I think anyone who watches it could get something incredible out of it and could have an incredible experience with it. So yeah, those are my 3 picks for this, and I hope you have an excellent day, and tune in again next week to see more book recommendations and slice of life and craft options. Bye!